Hey everyone, welcome back to Riverwalk Talk. My name is Chip Harrington. This is a little show I started a little while ago to talk about different things around Ludlow and the region and kind of profile some different people. But I also have been highlighting some old shows that I did back in the day. I started this show on cable access called Our Town in 1999 and just talked to different people around town. And the second show I ever did was with Mr. Ed Lafayette. Ed used to be a member of the Board of Selectmen. He was involved in other aspects of the town, and we talk about that. But what I found most interesting about my talk with Ed was his service in the United States military, in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War. He was drafted. He talks about that and, going through the whole process. And then he talks about how he was wounded, pretty severely wounded during the war in this interview. So I thought it would be, number one, nice to see Ed again and talk about some of his things, but also to honor him for his service as a member of the United States Army. So enjoy this episode of Our Town Classic with my buddy Ed Lafayette.
Hi, welcome to Our Town. This is the second broadcast of our weekly series and featuring some local people and local issues that our community faces on a weekly and daily basis. My name is Chip Harrington and I'll be your host. Today we have as a guest Mr. Ed Lafayette. He's the current chairman of the Board of Selectmen and has been involved in other town official capacities as well. And I'd like to talk to Ed today about some of the things that the town is facing as far as the Board of Selectmen is concerned, and also some of his past experiences in the area. Ed, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I don't know if you saw last week's show, but we had Mr. Rooney and Mr. Cavallo on, and I think it was a great way to kick off our series here, and you're a nice compliment to that, to get you in here as well.
I have to tell you that I watched the first show, and the two gentlemen that you had on are super guys, and I got to know them through my political career, and I served with Bill Rooney, and he was kind of my mentor, and I enjoy so much listening to him talk, and also Mr. Cavallo. We got two great co-chairmen there for the 225th anniversary, and they're doing a super job. And I was here last night, matter of fact, in another meeting when I stopped by. I know they spearheaded that. There are so many people involved in that, so that's going to be quite an event. So I'm glad to see that was our first show and bringing that out, and I hope everybody in our community comes out and sees that.
Yeah, I agree. It was fun. I'd like to start off first. Let me just give you a little introduction to the people at home watching. You were born actually in Vermont,
Right.
and you were raised in Springfield,
Right.
and you came to Ludlow in 1971 after serving a few years in the Army.
I served in the United States Army. I
Okay.
served, of course, in Vietnam. And,
Yeah, and then tell me how'd you get to Ludlow, and then tell me how you got involved in town politics.
I like any young person. When I was out of service, I was getting married, and my first home I bought in Ludlow, which was a small home, which I increased it to a breezeway, then a second floor, and I'm still there.
Yeah.
And it's been 28 years, and I just got done celebrating my 28th anniversry with my wife. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So it was a kind of a nice thing, but it's a great town that we live in. And I'm so glad that I moved to Ludlow. And but when I did come here, it was like I said, after I got out of service, and what I did, I was going to school at nights and working during the days, and I got an associate's degree in civil engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I went to work for the electric company. But getting involved in the town politics, I think, was exciting. I was involved in Cub Scouts and different activities, and I have to tell you, you meet so many nice people in this community. But I got involved because there was an old road behind my house, and somebody wanted to open it up and bring a bulldozer on, and I said, geez, they just can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And being in the civil engineering group down in Connecticut, in Berlin, at Northeast Utilities, I started looking at some of the specs and the plans and what you can do, and got the zoning laws here. And what happened was I went to the Board of Selectmen, asked to have a hearing, and they were very supportive. And that time, I think it was John Randall, Bill Cabell, and Larry Lett, and I'm not sure who the other members were, but they were very supportive. But I said that would never happen to me again. I want to know what's going on in town.
Was this 1971? Or was
No,
this
this
later?
was in 1985. Because,
Oh, okay.
And what happened was that's when you're pretty well settled. Your kids are now starting to go to school. So, from that time on, I've been involved in, and it's like anything else. You've been a selectman, so
Yeah.
you've been involved in. You get hooked on politics. Some people might think we're crazy when I say that because
My wife does.
You can get beat up, but all in all, as long as you do what you feel is best for this community, what
Yeah.
is best for the community, and try to do the best job, I think that makes the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And And that, from that day forward, I always wanted to get involved, and.
So you had the issue behind your house, and from there you went to the planning board.
Well, what happened was by reading the zoning laws and the subdivision control laws, I found the answers that I needed. But I also found that there was a need for people in the community to volunteer or run for boards. And I did. I filled a vacancy seat. That was the first time. I think the first time I ran, though, I ran against Fred Slazik, and he beat me. But after that, I ran again and I won. And I was filled a 3-year term from there. I filled in a 3-year term. And what happened was, in those 3 years, it was very exciting for me. I went from a secretary to vice chairman to chairman, and we changed the zoning laws, and we did it under a state grant of $10,000. And I worked very hard. And
what kind of changes did you spearhead?
Well, the old zoning laws were built almost like a pyramid type of effect. You could do in agriculture, then you can do in different zones, and kind of like built a pyramid. What we did is kind of specify that. But there was 3 major issues that we were facing, and we've seen that at all the times that were going on. First of all, we're in a big boom time at the time. I think we're building a new home in this town one every 3.5 days, so you can imagine the subdivisions that were coming in and all the different things that were happening.
Around 1986?
Sure. I remember being here, as a matter of fact, in this room, when we went down to this room in the town hall, is that we were here sometimes almost 2 o'clock in the morning going over plans. My wife finally got upset at me because I had a typewriter on my kitchen table. I was doing some of the legal notes because we didn't even have a secretary. That's
really, yeah.
Everything was changing. But I enjoyed it. We had a good board, and we learned a lot, and we set some good criteria. And the zoning laws, when we changed 3 major issues that we seen face us. One, we were finding that some large businesses that were approaching us at the time that wanted to develop in areas that we had no sewers and no water. And we were, as a board, we were saying, well, if they do that, who's going to pay for that? It would be the taxpayers, because they have a right to do it under our
So hook
laws.
up to the sewer lines and water lines?
So what we did, yeah, and so what we did was turn around and say that we changed to a monolay density, agriculture monolay density, which meant that if you can put a business in that agricultural zone, you have to be within 1,000 feet of the sewers, and if you employ more than 10 people, you have to tie into the sewers. That seemed to slow down, or at least put some of those people away that were looking at large developments or large commercial use in some of our rural areas, and gives us a chance, some breathing room to at least to look at what we want to do.
Yeah.
So that was one of the changes. The other change was we were having an influx of auto body shops just being built in any agricultural zone, because most of our land is left as agricultural.
Right.
And if you built a home for $150,000, $200,000, and the guy next door to you decides that he wants to put a
Used car lot?
Auto body business, and
Okay.
then you say, geez, he can do that. So we took that out, we put it in industrial zone land. That eliminated all those problems.
So it kind of took away the spot zoning and
Right,
some
and-
issues like that.
So those were the issues at the time. And the last one that we seen, and I feel good about this one, and some people might feel differently, but we took duplex homes were being a big influx by developers, and what they were doing, and I've seen this in other communities because I work for Western Mass Electric, and I deal with 7 other communities, is that they were coming in and doing subdivisions with 2-family homes in it. And a lot of times you get absentee landlords. And what happens there is that you have a lot of transit people, and it draws on your taxes, it draws so on. And what we didn't want to do was have that happen here, because so what we did is say we want 2-family homes, but we want the people in the neighborhoods to be able to say what they want in the neighborhood, and they do that by zone change.
Yeah.
So we changed everything to put it in residential B, which would have should have been in the first place. So with those 3 major changes, it shaped our community into what we see today.
Yeah.
Because it slowed down the growth of some of that fast-moving housing, and it also gave us a chance to expand and look at where we want to go. There's still so much more to do with the planning board. And
Yeah.
That's an exciting board, and
Yeah. What is there? There's 5 members.
there's 5 members. You know, there's master plans you can look at. There's I know Bill Mahoney's on our board. He came from the
Yeah.
planning board. He's a very sharp guy, and he did the cell towers. He did some other things.
There
So-
seems to be kind of a common transition where you have somebody like yourself who served on the planning board to move up to the Board of Selectmen. You had, like you said, yourself, Bill Mahoney, John DeBarge, I know was involved in that.
He was in the
past.
finance committee, and
And
that's
finance.
either the finance committee, because those boards are, you have to learn the basics, and
Yeah.
they give you a good chance for basics. And,
Yeah.
And that made a big difference for me, because the Board of Selectmen is completely different than what people think it is.
Yeah, yeah.
They probably know now as they watch our meetings on Tuesday nights. That
Yeah.
some of it's boring, some of it's not boring, but there's a lot of work and a lot of hard times.
Yeah.
And myself, I go off 3 to 4 nights a week, and sometimes weekends. So
Mhm.
you got to commit yourself. And you sat on the board,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. And I give all the members credit that, and past members that served on that board, because people don't realize the hard work they do, and it's very, I know you get paid a little bit, but it's more of a volunteer type
Oh,
of thing.
sure. And now we should mention the other board members that you serve with. Obviously, you've got Claudia Chimpa. She's been on. She's going into her sixth year.
She's in her 6th year. Claudia's, yeah. She's
Yeah.
good,
Bill Mahoney. We just
Bill
mentioned
Mahoney just doing his 2nd year.
Yeah, and Matt Peninchin.
Matt Peninchin.
And Tony
Tony
Fonseca.
Fonseca.
Yeah. So you've got a.
We got a very good board.
You got a really good cross section of people, I think, on that board too. You know, you've got some people who really represent some different areas of the community.
Well, you know, the last 2 members we picked up, I have to say this, Bill Mahoney and Matt Peninchin are super people. You know, being a chairman and having the caliber of people on the board that we have,
Yeah.
it makes a big difference, because they all, we can draw from each other, and that makes a big difference. And our staff, you know, you worked with our staff, that's
Yeah.
what keeps everybody, you know, if we look good maybe as a board, but our staff
Yeah.
is, you know, Betty and Beverly and Sister doing the
Yeah,
minutes, you know.
and Sue,
And
yeah.
then Sue, and, you know, and Helen helps out part-time. I mean, those are the people that really keep everything moving for us, you know.
Let's
I talk to Betty, I gotta tell you, I talk to Betty almost on a daily
Oh, I'm
basis.
sure, yeah.
And, you know, she does an excellent job, and,
Yeah.
so that makes the difference
Yeah.
for us.
Well, I mean, let's face it. When a resident has a complaint, or if there's a real issue to be heard in town, you know, we as selectmen would get calls at home, but the majority of the calls go right to the selectman's office, and Betty and Beverly and Sue and Sister have to field those and try to, you know, deal with those as best they can. And it's a difficult job, without question, you know, and they do deserve a lot of credit for doing that. Let's talk a little bit about your days before you came to Ludlow, and how you mentioned to us how you got involved in town government, and it was shortly after you had gotten out of service.
That's when I was about 170 pounds as thin as you.
170, really? Do I look 170 pounds on camera?
You look good to me, you know.
Well, thanks. But you served in the Army, and you served in Vietnam for how many years?
I served in the Army. I went in the Army in 1968. I got out, really retired in 1974. I retired from disability.
You were drafted.
I was drafted in the Army. I was a young guy, 20 years old, you know, and like everybody else, signed up for the draft at 18, and having a good time. You know, that's where I was dating my wife at the time, you know. What happened was that, you know, I had a 57 Chevy convertible. I wish I had that today. You know,
Yeah.
Worth a lot of money.
Somebody's got a
But,
problem.
you know, and I was a cabinet maker, a carpenter, and that's what I was doing as a trade. And I enjoyed it, but I got drafted, and my father was a World War II veteran, you know, a disabled veteran, and, you know, I was always brought up very patriotic, and I didn't think nothing of it, you know. I wasn't watching the 5 o'clock news, you know.
Yeah.
At 18, 19, 20, you don't watch the news, you're always out. And at that time, of course, there was a lot of turmoil going on in 1968 with, you know, the burning of the draft cards in Chicago. But that never affected me. You know, I had a, you know, I was, you know, brought up that, you know, it's your turn to go, you go. It was quite an experience for
Yeah.
me, you know.
I just
But
wanna,
I
like,
did
kinda-
serve in the United States Army, and I served with the 199th Light Infantry Brigade in Vietnam. And the nice thing, it was the only brigade that was in Vietnam. It wasn't a division, so we got to go
Oh.
different places.
Oh, really?
And so when I did go there, I went through my basic and training down south, and I was a combat infantry. And so when I got there,
Let me stop you there
Okay.
before you go through the whole story. But I just want to try to get a sense. It's 1968, and you know, you got Richard Nixon as president, and you're a 18, 20-year-old kid at the time driving around.
Johnson was president. See,
Johnson was president.
Johnson was
Okay,
president.
Nixon was on his way in.
Nixon was coming in. Nixon was coming in.
Okay, so and you're really not paying attention to any of that stuff, and next thing you know, you get a draft card, and you're on your way to Vietnam. What was your impression of what were you feeling at the time? It was just like you say, it's time to go. It's my turn to go.
Well, you know, when you're 20 years old, it's an adventure. You know, you never think anything's going to happen to you at 20 years old. I mean, you're invincible. You know, I guess maybe that's why you get drafted at that young age. And there was people. When I went down to Springfield to the draft center, there was like 280 people that day that was getting drafted, and that was always going on. All the days. That was the height of the Vietnam at that time. But you know, I looked at it as just something I had to do. And you know, there was many people that I can think of two men I met from Ludlow that went down. Joe Pio. I know him. He went down the same time I did. Also, he doesn't live here now. I think his parents might. Is Paul Petruba.
Mhm.
We turned out to be very good friends during the service.
Did you guys serve together in the same
We served in
brigade?
basics, and we served in, through some advanced training, and then we kind of went off into different companies. I seen Paul once when he came back. Somebody told me he lives out by Boston, but real nice guy. And Joe, I see Joe every once in a
Oh,
while.
yeah.
Super guy.
Yeah. So you get drafted, you go to basic training, and in your basic training, did you still have, what was that like? Was it a quick basic training?
Basic training is for everybody. If you haven't been in service, it's learning what the code of conduct is, and learning just the basics, how to function in the military life. And that's what basic training is. And you had bivouac, and it's really what they do to you is that they orientate you to military life.
Yeah.
And, I'll give you an example. When you're first in service, you salute anybody. I remember one time that I saluted a sergeant, and I was a trainee. They call you trainee, and the first thing he says, "Why do you salute me?" I says, "Because we were told, sir, to call." He said, "First of all, you call me sir. I work for a living." He made me do 50 push-ups. I learned very quickly to
Yeah.
salute the officers and not
Yeah.
the sergeants.
Yeah.
But you learn. That's what I say. You learn all those
Yeah.
little things. And then advanced training. I went to advanced training, which was infantry training, and that's where you learn.
What was your job?
I was an infantryman.
Okay.
So that's what the
Yeah.
biggest demand was at the time.
So you get sent to Vietnam. When you first step off the plane, the boat, when
Well-
you first stepped onto the soil, what was your impression?
When we left from Jackson, South Carolina.
Yep.
And we went to Fort Ord, California, and from there we went to Vietnam. It was like a 23-hour trip, so you can imagine that.
Yeah.
You went from California, which was it wasn't that cold at the time, but it wasn't that real warm. When I got to Vietnam, you felt the humidity.
Yeah.
It was like 110 degrees in the shade. Vietnam really was, to me, was a big swampland.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like. And when you hit that heat, I can always remember the pilot says, "Welcome to Vietnam. We hope to see you on the way back." And that kind of stuck with you. But as you got down, of course, you already had your jungle fatigues, all the clothes, because they gave you that in California. And so you were ready to be put in your company. And so what you went to a whole company, they had your name already, and they told you what company you're going in. You spent a week in this big base camp that you were in. Mine was in Long Bend. And they orientate you, you get your weapons, you get everything, and then you go out to the field.
Yeah.
The first day that I went out in the field, I can remember going out the gates, and the guy that was on the truck, because it was a big open truck, he says, "Load your weapons." And we thought he was joking. He wasn't joking, because we were going up to Cu Chi, which is on the Cambodian border, and the company I was in was in a heavy battle. So when we got there, the first thing we did, I remember a chopper coming down, and they were bringing Americans back who were killed, and loading them onto the truck that we got off, and then we got on a chopper to go as replacements. So it was my indoctrination to Vietnam was
Yeah.
right away into combat.
I'm sure yours and
Sure.
thousands, millions others.
And that, it was quite a learning experience. You realize that this is not a game no more. This is.
Is it still 1968 when you actually get there? Or, I mean,
69. I got right after 69.
Yeah, so it's like around January or so
Yeah.
in 69.
And so what happened was, that battle there lasted almost for 3 days. That we were in off and on. At night they had what they call Kong sniffers, and those were set off, and we were fighting the North Vietnam regulars. They were coming in, even though I was about 80, 90 miles out of Saigon on the Cambodian border in Cu Chi. They were coming down to Ho Chi Minh Trail, and that's how they were infiltrating in. And this was right after the Tet Offensive, so they were still using those means. If you watch some of the old history clips about Vietnam, they were bombing the roads at night, and these people or in the daytime, and at night they were filling in a hole so they could come down.
Yeah.
They're very innovative people.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that.
Well, the history books and history documentaries that you watch and read, we're fighting them on their turf, and that was, as we look back now, and Secretary McNamara in his books, of course, has been referring to it now as it was really a mistake. It's we didn't know at the time.
Well, I guess maybe he can say that, and I'm not saying it was a mistake or not. I think what happened for me as an infantryman and as a regular man and then Vietnam veteran, we never lost a battle in Vietnam. A lot of people might not realize that. It was the longest war that this country, or conflict, whatever you want to call it. But it was, the soldiers over there were top-notch.
Absolutely.
The best that you could have at that time. And the war was really lost in this country, to me.
Yeah.
And but we did what we had to do and survive what we had to survive.
Mhm.
And I think today that's why you see some very upset Vietnam.
Sure,
visit.
absolutely.
I kind of adjusted a little differently. I came back and through a hospital, a little
Mhm.
different adjustment.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother me that way. You know?
Yeah. So how many, some of the battles that you first
Well,
encountered when you were
Being
down there?
being in down, you have to understand Vietnam. There was no battle lines.
Yeah.
It was always a hit and run type of thing, and we fought a lot of Viet Cong. And, the NBA was more up north, unless they were coming in through Cu Chi. That was one of the biggest battles in Cu Chi. But I was always in small firefights or. I'll give you an example. One day that we were resting, and what happened was we started getting hit by mortars, and we're a platoon of about 28 people. And we get up to move to find them.
Mhm.
And actually, what we would chase them, about 7-8 hours through, the jungles and through different things.
Mhm.
And what it was a squad of young girls. And
Really?
the girl that was running it was 14 years old.
Really?
And as we were chasing them, they were dropping their equipment, their mortars and something, because they didn't want to get killed.
Civilians?
They were civilians. It could be, but see, you didn't know who was
Yeah,
the
right.
enemy, who wasn't the enemy.
Yeah, right.
And what happened was, it's funny, that when we captured it, they actually, it's the first time I ever seen this, that, because I was young, and they were taking the mortars, but we had these beautiful stands, and, you line it up and you shoot it. They almost had a pipe with rags, and they hold it while they drop the things in, they would drop them up and come down on them,
Yeah,
if they weren't
right.
captured. But that's what type of war we were fighting. It wasn't just, men, it was,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
the Viet Cong, where your friends during the day, and at night you were enemies,
Yeah, really,
Uh,
yeah.
I can remember a village we were in that they shot rockets from us off bamboo thing they built, but it was so poorly made that everything went this way and things went up and straight down. But we couldn't shoot in the village because when we called in to confirm it, they said that's a friendly village.
But they're shooting at you.
Well, yeah, they're shooting
Yeah.
at you. So those are the things that, when
Yeah.
you're a young guy, you say, what's really going on? That's how we realized it was a political war.
Yeah. And how many years were you there?
Well, I wasn't there, either
Or-
you get hurt when you first get in, you get hurt at the end, but you never seem to get hurt. I was there 3 months and 4 days.
Really?
But every day I was there, I was in combat.
Really?
Because it was such a heavy thing. In the daytime, we went on ambush, search and destroy, and at night we're on ambush patrols. I got hurt going on an ambush patrol. But I was one, you can imagine, my squad, there was 8 of us, and out of the 8 of us, I was one of the most seniority guys there.
Yeah, really? And you had been there for 3 months?
In 3 months, so
Huh.
the turnover is amazing. And what happened to me, and I don't mind talking about it, because it's been about 30 years, it still gets me a little emotional.
Yeah.
But I lost my leg there, from a booby trap, and I don't know how it really was set. It looked, what they found was somebody else stepped on it, and they were pretty smart, the Viet Cong. And I was so close to it that my leg completely was gone, and my other leg was messed up.
You were with 8 other people in your group?
8 other people, no
And you were-
medics, no nothing. I had
you
the
were-
radio, matter of fact, and I'm calling it what they call a dust-off, and a
Yeah.
dust-off was the calling for you to come to pick you up. And it was just starting to get dark, so, and we knew something was wrong, everything was quiet and everything, but you just don't know that's gonna happen to you. When I landed in the rice paddies, I think the only thing that saved my life is I stood up, and the mud packed on the end of my leg. So,
So you hit the mine and you actually fell into a...
well, I went
a
up in
mud
the air
pack?
and came down.
Yeah.
And it's funny, everything's slow motion at the time. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember my friend Dickie Burr, he got hit, and I seen him going back, but he was just hit with the dirt. He told me it was all right, but right after I got hit, I sat up on the edge of the rice paddy, and I looked at my leg, I knew it was gone. But then everything broke out loose,
Yeah.
We started getting hit pretty hard. And from all over, you never seen the enemy, really, they were
Yeah.
always in spider holes or just in the grass lines, whatever. And so, the guys were super, they, circled around me, and,
So
I
you-
started calling in for a dust-off.
Yeah.
My radio started going dead. And I remember, a listening post,
Mhm.
3 guys made it through, don't know, and they called in, and
Mhm.
they had the radio. The first chopper come, I won't go through the whole story, but the first chopper
Yeah.
came in, and they blew it out of the air. They had a big
Oh,
red
really?
cross, and a lot of people think, well,
Yeah,
you
you're
don't
supposed
shoot
to be
those.
safe, yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
They had no,
There's no rules to war,
That's
right?
what they wanted. They wanted that chopper. After that, slow down. But I'll give you an example. I had 21 clips on. I had a shirt made. You had to be in it. I had 21 clips, and you have 18 rounds. And you never put 20 in. See, the tricks you learn. You never
Yeah.
put 20 in because you didn't want to break the springs. And the 5th one for the end, you always put a tracer. You're getting low on it. The tricks you learn as a
Yeah.
combat soldier. I used most of those up.
You used most of those up? As
So,
you were- as you
so we were
sitting there?
running out of supplies. We were still getting hit. Finally,
How many hours, or how long is this?
I was there for 2 hours. And,
Really? Oh, my God.
I didn't think I was going to make it. I really didn't. I remember a chopper coming in to drop off supplies, but it was a gunship, and I can remember hearing it and feeling the wind, and they're the ones that picked me up.
Wow. And you've told me that story before, and then I asked you if you would want to talk about that tonight, and you agreed to, and I think it's an incredible story. Every time I hear it, I'm just taken back. And people today, in my generation, I was born in 1968, and you're going through this in 1968, and the only war I've ever seen in my life is, Grenada, we've been involved in that and all things, but nothing to really impact somebody's life like you had gone through, or people of your generation have gone through.
Well, I think as my age bracket, at that time, either somebody you knew that went to Vietnam didn't make it back, or it affected so many families,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a tough time for a lot of young people.
The whole country was just go. It was
like I said, it was my time to go, and I, growing up in a family that was patriotic, I went, and I don't regret it.
Oh yeah. And many people don't realize that you've been through that. They see you around town, and you're in the parades, and you're involved, and it's not something like you've said to me a lot of times. What can you do?
Yeah, what do you do?
But it's still one of the most patriotic stories I've ever heard. And
well, thank you.
It
changed my life dramatically. Not just lose my leg, but they gave me the last rites and different things. So my attitude changed.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can imagine. So when the chopper takes you away, you go to the hospital, and obviously you're going to be heading home eventually, pretty soon here now.
Well, I went to what happened was I started coming a little bit more too, because you're moving around a little bit more, and it's funny, the door gunner that picked me up, I met him once.
This is in the helicopter?
In the helicopter. He came from Springfield.
Oh yeah?
And when I finally got out of service, and I got my artificial leg and everything, I met him up on Parker Street one time, and he says, we recognize. That was his last week there.
Oh my God.
And
you recognized him?
I recognized him.
He recognized you when you guys did? Wow.
I haven't seen him since.
Really?
But it was funny, because he remembered me more than I started remembering who he was.
Yeah.
So it's such a small world,
Yeah. Do you keep in touch with some of the people that you served with?
A couple guys I talked to, but we all seem to grow older and have our own families and so on. And some, didn't make it back. So so you don't see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
have you been down to Washington to the Vietnam Memorial?
No, the only thing, last year I went to the monument our company sponsored in Oxford, Connecticut, the wall, the smaller version. Very emotional to me to go. The highlights, I know a lot of people on the wall, and so it's hard to go.
I haven't been, but you see it on TV, and it's a sea of names.
Yeah.
You just look down and you see a black wall with all the white names, and
it's very moving.
Incredible.
And even today it's moving. I think it's just grabs you that so many people were killed in that conflict, and for what,
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
What do we gain?
Yeah, exactly. So then you come home, and obviously you have a long rehabilitation ahead of you when you get back to the States.
Well, you're right. What I did when I got hurt, I went to the Third Field Hospital in Saigon. I spent about 14 days there. Then I went to Japan, spent another couple weeks there. And my poor parents, my mom, she must have got about 14, I think it was, letters from the Army saying that, I lost one leg, I lost both legs, I lost my arm.
Oh, really? There was no confirmation as to what really happened?
Yeah. So it was tough for them.
Yeah, I can imagine that as well. So when you finally get back, and you said prior to this whole discussion that you were dating your high school sweetheart, I guess, at the time, who's now your wife. You come back to the States, and what year is this now, 1970?
Well, I really got back in 69. I was only 20 years old, and matter of fact, I got hurt in April 8th. I did get back within about the middle of May, and my birthday was the 25th, and I can remember saying, well, I'll be 21, I can vote,
Yeah. Wow. Gee, that's.
But I went to, what was, for me, for my rehabilitation, I went to Fort Devens.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was a lot of soldiers that, I was in a clinic where a lot of people lost their legs or arms.
Yeah.
And we had such a good group. And I don't mean to make it sound that way if you lost them, but our attitudes and spirits were high.
Yeah.
And that made the difference.
Yeah. So you come home, and did you propose to your girlfriend before you left, or was it when you got home?
No, we were still dating, and then after, that happened.
Yeah.
It just naturally happened.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what my wife puts up with me for all these years, but.
That's why she's the one that encouraged you to run for the selectmen. She wants you out of the house now, right?
Yeah, well, she wanted me to do some work, I kind of ran that thing.
That's right. She's the one that, she was, when you first got beat, she was the one that was most upset in town.
Yeah, if anybody knows that, we're such a believer in family values, and that makes a difference in, like I said, both my children. I'm happy I got good children.
Mhm.
I grew up and they're doing good things. So, my wife had a lot to do with that,
Oh,
not me
yeah.
as much as her,
Oh, yeah.
So, she's the glue that keeps us
Mhm.
together,
And then you came to Ludlow and,
When we got married in '71. I came to Ludlow. I bought my house just before we got married. It was a little house, and like I said, I expanded it to an
Mhm.
addition and the second floor, and we're still there.
yeah,
3 years later, my son came, and then
Yeah.
a couple years later, my daughter. So
yeah.
and
here
I
you
got
are.
involved in the community,
Yeah.
and like I said, scouts and different things. And,
So your son went to University of Massachusetts,
University of Mass, yeah.
and you got a degree in sports medicine?
Sports management.
Yeah, management.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know he's involved in town, coaching and,
Yeah, he just got done coaching Little League this year. He loves it.
Yeah.
He's super. I wish I had his temperament. He's very pleasant, very good.
yeah,
And the kids were a super A coach, and I think it was
probably 10, 11-year-olds.
something like that, 10 to 12,
Yeah.
I think, group. And that's what he loves. He loves baseball. He's a Yankee fan, though. I
Yeah.
try to tell him the Red Sox are better, but he outbeats me most of the time.
Yeah, well, the Yankees do too, just like
Yeah.
they beat the Red Sox most of the time too.
No, see,
Um,
you could sound like you must be a Yankee
No,
fan.
I'm not actually. I'm a Red Sox fan. I'm a Red Sox fan. That's why I'm bitter.
Okay.
But and your daughter, she's at Westfield State College now?
She was attending Westfield State College. She's going to start going at night. She wanted to get a full-time job, which she does. She works in town, full-time job. So
She's in town?
she,
Working in
she
town?
works in a construction company.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay.
She does the secretarial work and so on.
Mhm.
But so she's going back because she started to go from one thing. When you go to yourself when you go to college, sometimes you can change your major.
Oh, yeah.
I think now she wants to go back more for accounting and business.
Yeah.
She likes that. So
Yeah.
I'm happy for her.
Yeah.
So
We mentioned this before the cameras came on, but it's something that...
I'm going to steal some water here.
Sure, absolutely. It's something that we talked about earlier, whereas...
This is water.
Would people suspect otherwise with you? Is
No,
that why
I hope
you're...
not. I
Do
hope not.
you feel you have to say that? But, when you had graduated high school, you said you needed a high school diploma at that time to really get yourself a decent
Well,
job.
when you're-
Then it moved up to an associate's, now it's at the bachelor's. And
I would say back in my time, to get a decent job, and there was different types of jobs because, but you needed a high school diploma to get a decent job. As time changed, you would need at least an associate's degree
Yeah.
to at least open the doors to get a decent job. Today, a bachelor's degree gets you into the door,
Yeah.
but even a master's. So that's when we talk about education. That's why it's so important to make sure that the children in this community get the top-notch education.
Yeah.
And they can. We have the teachers to do it. We're getting the schools
Mhm.
up to par with, and the exciting thing today, if you're in a business, and I work, like I say, for a large company, Northeast Utilities, in that part of Western Mass Electric, there's not a day I'm not on a computer.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say, oh, the computers, this and that. But that is the tool of the future.
Yeah, no question.
When we talk about the Industrial Revolution, there is a revolution out there with computers, and today, we've been in the advantage of, where we're working in a company, they'll teach you. Today, they don't. Now
Yeah.
that stage is getting away.
Yeah.
When they come in, you should have those skills. So that makes a difference. And so I'm happy to see that happening in our high school. I'm
Yeah.
happy to see that's, and tying the information, and you're young enough that you've probably been on the internet.
Oh,
and
yeah.
different things.
Yeah, every
And
night.
when I talk the internet, I'm talking about instant information
Yeah.
that you can get. And that's how it is today.
Yeah.
And you need that to survive. And the market today is worldwide, not just local. You could have a business here in Ludlow, but tap in worldwide with
Mhm.
a computer. So we need the young people to understand that. We need them to learn those skills, and we can still prosper in a small community.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm hoping to see happen.
That's a big part of the construction
Sure.
project for both middle school and high school, is the information technology they're putting in there, some of the computer labs, and it's a big commitment this community made when they took that vote,
Bill Rooney said something last week, and I have to just go back. He said that one of the things that you can do with your children is read.
Read, yeah.
He is absolutely right today. I wish I could read better. I stumble sometimes over words. I should put my glasses on when I read. I don't.
Mhm.
But he is absolutely today. A child needs to have those reading skills, math
Mhm.
skills. I mean, we talk about sports, and believe me, I think it's great that kids need that.
Right.
But they need those other skills and those teachers that are valuable, and those are really what shapes the minds
Mhm.
of those children. And if you can read and write today, the world, you can command your own job almost.
Yeah.
So those are the skills that we have here.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, there's young people out there listening to us. Make sure you work with your children in that. And if they have some skills where they can't read or they have some trouble doing that, our schools provide different things.
Right.
So they're there, just ask. I can't tell you, I guess I'm pro-school, and I wish when I was younger, because when I got out of high school, I went into service. I didn't go back to college until after.
Yeah.
And when I lived here, I went at nights, and I was working on the days. And I just wish I had the opportunity. I didn't realize it, to go to college and then go from there. But as I said back then, a high school diploma, you landed a fairly good job.
Yeah.
So,
but even with college, even getting into electrical work, plumbing, auto mechanic, you're still dealing with computers on a daily basis, regardless of whether you go to college for a trade or for whatever it might be.
But, and I don't want to talk about work, where I work, but I am in charge of all the meters and service people here in the Springfield district, which does 7 communities, from Granville all the way to Ludlow and different communities. But the technician, a meter technician, won't be a mechanic where he just installs a meter. Not the meters are changing so fast.
Oh, yeah.
We hope to see this community not too long from now where we're going to put meters in that you can read automatically. You'll be able to get your bill instantaneously. You'll be able to get your bill over the internet. A lot of times the meters are coming out, you can read them by satellite. Can you imagine taking a meter and it's going to be a security system in your home that you can, or you can call in on your cell phone and turn your lights on. So all those things make a big difference. And, or if you have, you can even use it, you can even turn it where you can almost turn off a TV at a certain time. If you have kids watching at 9 o'clock at night, and you want it off at 8:30, all of a sudden the power goes off that outlet. I mean, so the technology, the technology is changing so much, and you have to be on top of that, and you have to be really knowledgeable and have a good basic skills.
Sure,
you know.
absolutely.
We do a lot of math, a lot of force angles and triangles, so finding the loads and power factors. So it's changing, and you got to know what you're looking at.
Yeah. Well, we are running on just about. Actually, I think we're over an hour. Last week we hit just an hour, and now we're going over an hour.
See, when I start talking, I never shut up.
Well, you've got 5 people to compete with at the Board of Selectmen, so you're on your own tonight.
Well, listen, I have to.
Thank you for coming in.
I have to say this, Chip, and to the camera people here putting the time in, and I know they're volunteer, but this, I think, is one of probably the best shows, and hopefully that the people that come on in the future after this, it's not a frightening show at all. I enjoy talking. No, to me it's not.
I usually panic when the cameras first turn on.
I never been in front of a camera.
Yeah. Oh, yeah?
But it's not a frightening show at all, and having people hear what some of us have to say and what we're doing, maybe give them a little better perspective of what's happening in the community.
Right.
And this is a service you provide, and I think it's great. I know Dorham's going to be mad at me, Dorham Caldwell, because he's been asking me to do a story, and here I'm doing your
Oh, boy, yeah. Oh, jeez. He's not going to come do my show if I ever ask him. But, no, I think you're right. And what the selectmen have done in negotiations in the past is make this available, make these cameras available for the community. And not many communities actually do something like this. They have a lot of other small shows, but I think this concept will work just because there's people like yourself that they see you on a daily basis, but they don't really know Ed Lafayette. Right, and I think this is one outlet that we can get some personal information out there if somebody's willing to talk about it, but also find out where, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, your goals are for this community, because you're probably going to be there for some time, I would think, I would hope.
I hope to be, but it's up to the people.
Yeah.
It's the people's choice who want to be there.
No question about it.
And I've been fortunate, and some people might say, oh, why do you want to do that? But I've been fortunate because I have an opportunity to give back, and that's the key. You give back to your community. We live in a community where you can give back.
Yeah.
I'll talk about other things, but I won't go into change of government or anything. What I do.
Oh, yeah, that's for another show.
That's another show. But there's a lot of different issues there, but I think what we have is that we have a hometown atmosphere, hometown type of politics that people can actually come and talk to you on a one-on-one basis. Yeah. And that makes a difference.
Well,
and by putting this on television, I think you were there that started it with the television.
Yeah, we were.
And I know when I first got on, I was nervous and so on, but I believe that people now realize what we do. They can hear you, and if they don't like what you're doing, and it shows in some elections, you're gone.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let me say this though. I don't know if your ratings have dropped since Larry Nascimento left, but when he was there, you guys were getting some pretty high ratings.
Well, let me.
I should say we were getting ratings because I was with him.
Let me tell you something. We all. Larry had a lot of good ideas.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I give him a lot of credit. Like anybody else, he took time to serve this community. Like him or not like him, he was out there, he voiced his opinion, and he would stand up and say, this is what I believe, and I give him a lot of credit for doing that. Hopefully someday maybe he'll come on your show
I hope
here.
he does. I'm gonna if he ever watches,
I used to like arguing with
I
him.
hope he does
I kind
come
of
on.
miss that, you know?
Yeah.
But Larry has, he brought some good ideas, and you know.
Better watch out. He's gonna run against you now. We're giving this big plug, and
Yeah.
you're gonna lose by 50
maybe I
votes from Larry.
yeah.
But you're right. But the TV cameras since they came in have done a big service to the community, and
People get to see who's out there, and are they really for the community? Where's your heart? My heart's for the town of Ludlow and the citizens.
yeah.
That's what I think.
And I think that shows. I know it shows. I can say that much. Well, that's going to be a wrap for today's show. I want to thank Ed for coming in. Usually at this point I try to say who we're going to have on next week's show, but at this point it's a surprise guest, mainly because I don't know who it's going to be. We've called a few people and waiting for some calls back. So we will have somebody next week. This show can be seen Friday night, 8 o'clock, Sunday at 7 o'clock, and Wednesday afternoon at 1 o'clock. Once again, thank you for tuning in to Our Town. We'll see you later.
Thanks again.
Thank you.